welcome again to this webinar, 5 strategic shifts to boost momentum at your church in 2026. It is such an honor to be here with all of you today. My name is Anna McEldoon, and among other things, I am the Step Challenge winner of Subsplash, but also a project manager here. I wear a lot of different hats, and I get to watch the ideas become beta products, become actual products, and then shift into serving the local church through technology. It is such a joy in my professional life. And today I have the privilege of hosting our conversation with both Carey Nieuwhof and Chris Sharp. So it's going to be a really fun one today. And Carey, thanks for joining us. I'm going to quickly intro Carey. He is a Canadian leadership author, speaker, pastor, podcaster, and he focuses on helping leaders, especially in church and nonprofit spaces, grow in both effectiveness and refining their leadership skills and influence. Carey started his early career as an attorney, made a pivot into ministry, and is the founding pastor of Connexus Church in Ontario, Canada. Today, Carey is widely known through his Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast, and he reaches millions each year to lead like never before. Carey, it is so good to have you back today.
Hey, it's great to be with you. I love the stuff you're doing, and it's a real honor to be with you for this hour.
Awesome. And Chris Sharp is our Chief Revenue Officer here at Subsplash. He has been with us for 15 years, working in many areas of our business, and is now landing and leading the church-facing side of our organization. Chris has a heart for investing and equipping the local church and is an industry leader in technology, and he works to engage and equip the church on behalf of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So Chris, as always, it's so good to be with you.
Yeah, this will be a fun conversation. I also like how you emphasize the Canadian part for Carey.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about common roots because you have some Canadian family, Anna.
I do. I have to mention it. I mean, what could be more fun than having the Canadian connection with Carey?
And I saw a couple of Canadians in the chat, so welcome. There we are, Waterloo. I saw BC, which is great.
I noticed BC too. I mean, and then now hello from Portugal. We are worldwide today.
Portugal.
This is awesome.
Gosh.
Awesome. So today's agenda, we're going to have a really fun conversation. These are the 5 points that we're going to touch on, those strategic shifts to boost momentum. We're going to kick it off today with two-way engagement, moving into everyone is known, church goes beyond Sunday, cultivating generous disciples, and leading culture. And Chris, I would love for you to just touch on really quickly what it is at Subsplash that we care about, our mission, and who we are as an organization.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Anna. I've been blessed, as you mentioned, to be a part of Subsplash for 15 years. And the core, we love technology. We love serving the church. But this is our mission statement: to glorify God and proclaim Jesus as Lord by building a great company that drives for humility, innovation, and excellence to delight billions of people on Subsplash platforms. And we're just excited about dreaming about a 100-year vision of serving the church. And it's such an incredible opportunity right now in particular, as we work with about 20,000 organizations and churches. Right now, we're finding it's an amazing time for the church. So our world, our culture, our youth are desperate for truth and meaning. And we are seeing some incredible opportunities for the church to be bold in our world. I actually was with some pastors last week on a trip, and one of them said in the past several weeks, they saw 1,300 more and then 1,700 more people coming to the church. Now, that's an incredible example. I'm sure many of you on this call are not yet seeing 1,700 new people on a weekend, but that just shows you it's an opportunity for the church in our world to be bold. And we're here to support as a technology partner.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for framing that up. And I think to your point, it speaks exactly to what we're wanting to dig into today, which is this momentum that we're seeing in the local church. And I'm so excited about it. I know Chris and Carey are too, and I'm sure all of you who are leading in the local church feel the same way. What can we do together to really grab hold of this momentum and maximize it as we move into 2026? So we're going to kick it off today with this one-way communication to two-way engagement. So we're noticing in this day and age that these younger generations that are growing up and coming to our churches, they are prioritizing very clear communication, feedback loops, and they want to collaborate where their voices are being acknowledged and valued. I'm seeing it in both my personal life and professional life. I'm excited to be raising kids that are wanting to engage in such intentional ways. And it's just such an opportunity for us as we are leading these communities together. And so, Carey, I would love to hear your insight, your perspective on how we can be intentionally building this two-way dialogue within our communities to foster relationship and a sense of belonging.
Well, I think you tap into a really important thread, an idea. Some of us who are a little bit older in leadership, we were raised in a broadcast environment, right? Like if you think about TV growing up, it's broadcast, it's non-interactive. And the internet's an upload culture, not just a download culture. So it's really important to have ways that you can actually communicate with people, like where it's back and forth. And so I think whether that's app-based or like answering emails or getting into the DMs on social or replying to the comments on YouTube, whatever you happen to be doing, and then, in real life experiences as well, where you're listening as much as speaking. And as a preacher myself for, well over 25, 30 years, it's really easy to get into the monologue thing where you're just talking and you've got the microphone. And I think there's a role for that. Like the Sunday morning sermon's important. But if you're not really giving the next generation a voice and a vote, they're not going to be happy. They're going to walk away. And so I think it's important to listen as much as it is to speak in this environment.
Gosh, I love that so much. I think that's one thing I've noticed too, is being an active listener in these relationships with this younger generation and really trying to understand what is it that you want to see in this community? How can we work together? And then you also get the opportunity to give them some responsibility and some of the stake in the game in terms of what they're wanting to see. Okay, great, let's do it together. And we've opened this communication.
When I was young, like, very, very young, 23, 24, I was given ridiculous amounts of responsibility. I actually worked for a radio station in Toronto. And then when I was in the law firm in my mid-20s, they just threw me into court every day. And I had opportunities that people at much larger firms wouldn't get until their third, fourth, fifth year. And it was like, you get into court, you sink or swim. And then when I started ministry, I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't going to do that with my life, but people just gave me a huge amount of trust. So I look at that first decade of adult life, and I was given amounts of responsibility that I probably shouldn't have been given. But I mean, I took it, I ran with it. And now, if you're like, well, you're only 37, I don't know whether you're really ready for leadership. It's like, I don't know. I don't think that's a very good approach at all.
Yeah. And on that, when you're thinking about church leadership, so trust is a huge component to maybe engaging the younger generation, but also probably clarity and vision. When you're trusting, it's with clarity for what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that's important. And for older leaders, you can set that, but you also realize that vision and strategy get renewed with every generation. And you reach a certain point, like the average senior pastor is 57 now, where you're probably not going to be the person with all of the innovative ideas anymore. And as much as, you got a lot of wisdom to share, but most of that innovative generational change is going to happen from people in their 20s and 30s. It's not going to happen when you're over 40. So I think it's important to give them a voice and a vote and really let them loose in the church. And part of that is listening, and you got to have the mechanisms and the vehicles to be able to do that.
Right. Some of the tools that we see today, maybe it used to be in your bulletin, filling in a comment card, dropping it in the basket and hoping for some type of follow-up. Whereas today we have, virtual forums. You can put people into workflows. You can do group chat where there is more of that channel for authentic connection and community, maybe giving people a little more access that you can't physically give everyone access all the time in presence, but maybe with technology, we can increase engagement.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that we're definitely noticing that there are opportunities to engage. And I think, Carey, kind of to your point, when you give somebody that responsibility, they're going to want to show up and they're going to want to do well 9 times out of 10. Of course, we have the fringe of people, but 9 times out of 10, you give people that responsibility. And not only is the two-way dialogue open, but here they are showing up early, staying late, ready to invest and engage. So I absolutely love that.
Totally agree. Yeah, and they have the energy. They also, they're a digital generation. They have a lot of information. They have a lot of ideas, and they probably need a little bit of guidance from time to time. But I think we underestimate the next generation at our peril.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah.
So moving to shift number 2, from everyone is welcome to everyone is known, something you've shared, Carey. And here's a stat from Barna. The loneliness epidemic has increased since the end of the pandemic, and we're seeing 55% of Americans desire to participate in community activities, which is up from 32% in 2002. 2002, obviously no iPhone. We're more in person. I always love the pictures where people show here's what a crowd looked like in 2002. Everyone's paying attention, and then it shows a crowd in 2025 and everyone has their phone out. Pros and cons to that, but we're certainly seeing this change in a desire for people to participate in community activities. So one question, Carey, how do we make people feel connected, known, and valued?
I think this is a tension for a lot of churches. Every traditional church has got a everybody welcome sign on the outside. And, for those of you who are church planters, I actually helped a few churches here, very near to where I still live, transition. They were part of a mainline church into one church, and we started growing, and growth always brings resistance. And part of the resistance is, we had so few people attending at the beginning. It was 6 people, 14 people. And then our mega church had 23. And, I remember when the church of 14 suddenly became a church of 40. And there was one woman who was really upset about it. And she said, we're not going to know everybody. And I knew everybody in the room. It's not that hard to know 40 people. So I pointed out somebody in the back row, and I'm like, hey, do you see that person over there? What's his name? She had no idea. He'd been attending for 6 years. And I think there's the myth sometimes that we want to be in a church where we know everybody, but it's impossible to. And then you get into hundreds or thousands of people or tens of thousands. And I think that's the challenge. And so what you have to do is you have to connect people. And this is where technology is your friend, right? You mentioned the bulletin and the welcome card. Well, if it got dropped by Uncle Al and it's hiding behind some couch that you're going to find it next time the cleaners are in, that person isn't getting followed up. But when it's digital and you can follow up, and you've got sometimes automated sequences and personalized sequences, this is where AI is even great. You can make a highly personalized experience for somebody who's new, because not all new people are alike. You have transfer growth. Somebody just moved to your city. They're trying your church. You got people who are brand new, don't even know whether they believe in Jesus. And then you got a mix of everybody in between. Well, there should be different paths for different people. And so you want to customize that. And then you want to get people in community and in relationship. So, the more that you can connect with people, figure out who they are, where they are, what they need, what their next step is. And again, what I've discovered is, it's funny. My wife and I went to the third service. We added a third service because we're completely out of room. And I was sitting there on Sunday morning at this church where I'm the founding pastor. And I'm like, I don't think there were 2 people whose names I knew. Our church has grown so much over the last few years. And I'm like, but that doesn't really matter. I might be the founding pastor. I might teach a few times a year. It's irrelevant whether I know people. It is highly relevant that they are known. And the only way that scales, particularly across multiple locations and online, is when you connect people together. So we have a small group that meets at our house and other homes, 10, 12 people. That's great. We're all known. We're all connected. And you can do that at scale.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about somebody who comes, maybe they're new, maybe it's their first time ever actually going into a church. However they got there, what is the path for that individual, right? So there's opportunities today. You want to get them into a small group. If we're thinking about the discipleship journey, eventually we want them being a core disciple who's serving, giving, participating, but it might not start there. Is that? I
agree. And I think you need a clear path. For example, for the person who's coming and they're not just moved into town from another church, ready to serve, ready to give. What you need is a personalized path, and you need a clear answer. So there's that famous study of paralysis of choice, right? So in a supermarket, people were given 6 jams to choose from and they chose nothing. It's like, I don't know, do I want strawberry, kiwi? I have no idea what I want. But when they're given 2, they're like, oh, actually, I like apple jam better than, cherry jam. I'll take the apple jelly or whatever it is. So when you give them too many choices, and a lot of churches, when they're doing a one size fits all approach, broadcasting, it's like, well, you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do this, and you could do this. And then they're like, it's too confusing, delete. So if you can create a custom path that says, hey, you're new to the city, we'd love to welcome you. You're new to church. We have this reception, we have alpha, we have whatever it happens to be, a new members class, but you're clear on what that path is. And you channel all the new people who don't have a church background into that path. That's how you connect them. And then maybe you have a different path for people who are transfer growth in, or maybe everybody takes the same path. But simplicity, that was true. That jam study was done, I think, 20 years ago. Think about how much more complex the world is now. So you really want to simplify the choice for people. If you give them 3 things to do, they do nothing.
Right. And for me, it's either strawberry freezer jam or raspberry.
There you go. Yeah, I was kind of picking jellies, wasn't I? Bad examples.
Yeah. Also, we're finding if I'm new, that's where using the technology that we have at our disposal today is your best friend, because I can put somebody on that path of they want to get connected or they're not quite there. Maybe that alpha course is interesting, but I can use communication back to two-way engagement to start communicating versus everything has to be come on Sunday. I hope you take action. I can start nurturing communication with my mobile app, my website, my SMS plan that I put you on a personalized text.
No, exactly. And that's where technology works for you, not against you. And that's where, again, you can have automated sequences too that go out to people. So literally while you're sleeping or on your day off, you're interacting with people and it feels very personal. And people are savvy enough to know, okay, this is probably an automated response, or this is a scheduled message. But if you make it personal enough and intelligent enough, it's going to feel very, very personal to you.
Right. And it's helpful. We're conditioned to that. I sometimes in the church, maybe marketing is the wrong word, but if you think about the impact of marketing on us or a process you put people through, done well, it's just helping you connect to the right outcome, which in the church, the right outcome is people deeply knowing Jesus and being a disciple. So how do we engage in that? Everyone is known, everyone has an opportunity to connect.
Well, and I think part of it, it's like, what do you want? It's very easy as a church leader, because I've sat in that seat for a few decades, to make it all about you and the church. It's like, we want you, Anna, we want you, Chris, to join us in this program. It's about what I want from you, not what I want for you. And a much better strategy is, what do I want for you? I want you to grow. I want you to connect. So it's like, I want you to sign up for this program. It's a very different ask than saying, hey, we want you to get connected to people because that's part of God's plan. And we know it can be very scary and we know it's important. So we'd like to make that an easy step. And here's the benefit that's going to happen to you. This is what's going to happen to you. I really believe, I went to, it's funny, we threw a party at our house on the weekend for the neighbors. And we've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. Nobody had ever really done that. And people were grateful almost to the point of tears. And they said, in this world of darkness, this feels like light. And I mean, it wasn't like open your Bibles. We were the only Christians, to my knowledge, in the mix, and the only churchgoers for sure. But we wanted to open it up, and community is so rare. It's one of the things that church can do extremely well, but the culture doesn't know it. And conversely, I've been at a couple of events that were hosted just by community members who are not Christians. And it was awkward. Went to a fitness event and like the guys who were there weren't really talking to each other. And then I went to an event that was centered around barbecue, because that's one of my hobbies. And it was just 14 of us. And it was so awkward when I get in there. Everyone's standing around. Nobody's talking to each other. And then it hit me. The church is so good at community. And, Canada's like 97% unchurched, right? So chances are none of these people went to church. At least to my knowledge, they didn't. And it's like, we are the elixir. We are the people who know how to do this. And the New Testament is full of one another passages. So nobody should be better at this than a local church. That's
right.
my thesis
Absolutely.
of getting people connected. And I was at a conference last year in Cabo, a business conference for SaaS entrepreneurs, software as a service entrepreneurs. And it's a cool conference. You get to give your talk in the pool. It's invite only. And I was doing a Q&A talking about community. And there was a college student there. She was 18. She went to university in Texas. And she grew up in the church. And she just said, I think like my friends don't know how to do community. They really don't. And she says, how are we going to teach them that? And I've never forgotten Emma's question. And it made me think, yeah, we are the social conveners now of our communities, and we should use that. And if you don't get a response, it's probably because if the person is truly unchurched, they don't know how to do community. As the stats said, they're isolated, they're lonely, they don't really talk to people. Man, and I think that's going to get worse, not better, in the age of AI. So I think we got to step up.
But they want community so bad is the point too, that I love what you're saying, Carey, because the church can be that catalyst and should be, and it should be all the church, not just on the staff on Sunday to create that experience. But I've seen the same thing even here in Seattle, one of the least church places in America. Yeah. My Amazon driver a couple weeks ago, we started talking and we ended up praying, and he said, I want to come to church with you. I think people are just hungry. They're hungry for a community. And if we can be that, and then give them the connection tools, we could actually change this world, is what we believe.
I believe that too. And one of the other challenges is pastors get overwhelmed because we think automatically, you've got to connect with me. No. Or the staff. I just hire more staff. Then you have way too much staff and you can't afford anything. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do is exactly what you're saying. You want to create a world in which everybody is known, right? Yeah. So when I was a lead pastor, we had 3,000 or 4,000 people who called Connexus home. I didn't know 70% of them, and that's okay. That's fine. Because we had a church where everybody, the systems, the structure, the communication was all developed so that people who wanted to be known, like you serve, you give, not giving even, but you serve and you're in community group, we wanted everybody to follow that path. If you were in that path, you got known. If you opted out of community, hey, I have no responsibility for that. You chose not to participate. But that's how you do it. And you have to be able to be cool with that to scale and to reach more people.
I think that you're hitting on so many good things, Carey. I know too, people often stumble into church when they are in a vulnerable place in their life. So if we have an opportunity with a person, a family, to really connect with them at that point, it can change their lives. And we get the opportunity to open that door, tell them who Jesus is, and hey, there's a better way. There is hope with the gospel. So I love all of these things that you're saying. And I think there's just so much there for people to really be known in their church communities. And like you're saying, it doesn't have to be the pastor knowing everybody. I think when a church can open itself up and there are leaders within that church that can connect with people, it is such a gift. All right. I think we can probably shift in. It's very similar, but a little bit different. Number 3, church happens on Sunday to church goes beyond Sunday. I think we're saying a lot of this in the being known section of this conversation today, but faith is 24/7. Being a part of a church family is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Obviously, Sunday is when church happens, but I love the thought of moving beyond just Sunday. And we are learning and seeing that people are, as we've mentioned now, hungry for more than just a Sunday morning experience, than just a weekend experience. And Barna even has 74% of Christians want their church to create a digital resource hub. If that doesn't tell us where we're at in our day and age, I don't know what will, but people are using digital tools. We are on social media. We are text messaging our friends. We are FaceTiming people. We are looking up the news in the blink of an eye. And while there has been some negative impact in the world to that, I think as church leaders, we have such an opportunity right now to create resources for people who are saying, I want more, I want more, I want more. And I know I see it here all over Atlanta. I'm kind of nearing that age with our oldest, he's ready for a phone, and that's how everybody connects. And it really has become this tool for us to use. So we would love to take a quick poll from all of the church leaders that are here. What are y'all seeing the daily connection tools between the 4 that we've listed? Please go ahead and cast your vote. But we have things like a mobile app. Maybe your church has a mobile app. I know my church has a mobile app. It kind of is that digital resource hub. Social media posts, communication. So things like text messages, emails, newsletters, push notifications. And then finally, those sermon and discipleship resources, which connect to what that message is on Sunday. This is so interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and cast y'all's votes. We'll give it a couple more seconds here.
Oh, this is interesting.
It is.
Look who's number 1.
I love seeing
social media. Oh, there it is. It's a clear lead. We have a winner.
Social media.
Yeah.
Still a little bit. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised, Carey.
No, I can't either. And you know what's interesting? Like, everybody's on social media, which is great. But here's the challenge with social media, and it's been the challenge for years. It's getting worse. When you're on social media, and if that's your primary source of engagement, the sad news is whether you have 100 followers, 1,000 followers, 10,000 followers, is a tiny fraction of your audience is seeing what you're posting. When you really dive into the metrics, right? Because the average person in your church might follow 100, 1,000 other people, other organizations, other churches, other preachers, and you assume, oh, we posted on social, everybody saw it. It's like, probably less than 10% of the people who follow you actually saw that post. And that gets a little bit terrifying. Like, if you're sending out, you think about handing out old school flyers, and just imagine 9 out of 10 are being thrown right into the fireplace and burning up, and nobody's reading them. That's what's happening with social media. So I'm not saying you should be off social media, but if that is your strategy, great strategy for getting 10% of your audience engaged. And that's why, as unsexy as it is, email is still way better. So I get, people who are starting an online platform asking me all the time, what should I do? I'm like, well, how's your email list? And they're, oh, email, nobody's on email. It's well, everybody's on email. You have to have an email address these days to get anything online. And so I really think that, and like an app dedicated to your church, because even if you're in an inbox, you have a high open rate, people are getting dozens, hundreds of email messages a week. If you have people are overwhelmed. If you have a one-stop shop, like an app that's dedicated to your church, it's like, okay, you're going to get 100% delivery. People are going to tune into it. They're going to see it. All the content's there. It's well designed. It's well thought through. I would strongly recommend that people think about more direct forms of communication. Again, be on social. Just know that every time you post, you're probably hitting 10% or less of your audience.
That's so good. I completely agree. I've found myself in life, everything my family is doing, I'm like, okay, is there an app? What's the app? Where's the app? It's where I immediately think to go to get quick information, whether it be school, sports, our church, anything we're doing and invested in as a family, thinking that, okay, what's the app? I need the app. That is my first go-to to get all the information related to everything in our lives. And interestingly enough, Subsplash started with the church app. Chris, I'm curious to hear just a little bit of your experience seeing how the app has grown over the course of the last 20 years in the church space.
Yeah, it's tremendous. And you think as church leaders, how much time do we spend curating and carefully planning and rehearsing for our Sunday service? And yet we're talking about, even beyond Sunday, the tremendous opportunity we have today to have discipleship touch points and gospel connections. We've talked a lot about community, but also now in the theme of discipleship resources. There was another data point too that said 2/3 of churchgoers wanted more from their church. We want more discipleship resources. So there's a tremendous opportunity for us to say, Sunday is a great experience. This is the church. That's what we do. But there's so much more that we can do. So just high level, websites is a great place to be your discovery. Make it optimized, find ways to make it mobile responsive. They're going to find you on their mobile device. But then an app is an incredible way to engage people through the course of the week. So it might look like we've taken some of our sermon from Sunday and turned it into using AI or other to have touch points. We might have questions. We might be doing a Bible reading plan that keeps people engaged. And there's many data points on that. Getting people in the Word 4 days a week leads to more likely to be a disciple, but also less lonely, less depressed, less addiction. Let's get people in the Word, and let's leverage the tools of our day to find that connection point. So Bible reading plans, and with an app, as you're talking about, Anna, you can easily prompt, here's a push notification that pops up. Have you engaged the Word today? Or we have this, we're starting a live stream right now, or come join us, invite people in to the conversation.
I love that. Yeah, I can let my humanity show for a second that when something does not have an app, I get a little annoyed because it's just so easy. It's just so easy to get all of that information right at your fingertips. Carey, I'm curious to know, just from your perspective too, what have you noticed in terms of engagement with your congregation? I know Connexus Church, you're kind of now a member, but we're one of the founding pastors over the course of the last decade or so that you've seen with introducing things like an app, a website. Do you notice a generational engagement that's different between tools like that?
Apps are way better, I think, because they're kind of a one-stop shop for everything that's here. And we've had different apps over the years, and it's always better that way. The interesting thing, I mean, this is my theory. I haven't really talked about it, but I think websites are dying. I know people always give the go to careynieuwhof.com. Well, traffic is down significantly on most websites because that is not how we consume content. And if you're doing a Google search now, what do you get? You get an AI summary. You don't actually get those magic blue links. So you need to have a website. It's kind of like having a social media presence. But if you're expecting, it's good for discoverability. It's good probably for older folks who are used to going there, but I don't think the next generation is really going to your website. Right. I think they're going to find your app. They're going to look for some kind of text messaging sequence. They're going to probably find you on social, but again, you're only getting through to them 10% of the time.
Right. And one interesting point on that too, across Subsplash, our average church with an app has 3 times more people engaged with their app than coming on a Sunday.
Wow.
So you do start to think about digital engagement is a core part of our discipleship journey today.
Well, that's going beyond Sunday too. So the Barna stats right now for 2025 are that the average, the person who attends most frequently in a month is a Gen Z attender, and they're showing up 1.9 times a month. So that means half the time they're away. Boomers are now down to 1.4 times a month. So basically, you've got your stalwart boomer who's been part of your church for 30 years. They're probably there 1 Sunday a month. And maybe next month they'll be there 2 Sundays, according to the stats. So if you're like, we're reaching everybody on Sunday, no, you're not.
Right.
If you have an average attendance of 100 on Sunday, you probably have 200 to 300 people who call your church home, because only half to a third of them are showing up on a given Sunday. So you need that midweek strategy to stay connected. Otherwise, well, you missed everything and you have 12 touch points a year. That's basically what it's boiling down to, 12 to 24. Wow. So a lot of, because the room might be full, you might say, wow, we're out of seats, but most of your church is still missing. That's what we got to get our heads around.
Right.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I think we're seeing the people want it. The people want these digital resources. They want these digital tools. And it takes your ability to reach your community from a 10 to a 100 almost overnight when you have something easily accessible like that. I love it.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of the generations, it's probably good to move to shift 4 from we hope people give to cultivating generous disciples. If you're dependent on, let's say, the boomer older generations who, as Carey just quoted, they're less likely to be in church today versus millennials and Gen Z, and we start thinking, how are millennials and Gen Z giving? It's obviously, we need to have it as a byproduct of discipleship. Churches don't exist to have people just give. You want people to be in that journey of growing deep in community. We've talked about connection. We've talked about discipleship that then leads to a byproduct of giving. And so it's changing, and there's a tremendous shift. In fact, we recently had a church. It was the Ethiopian Evangelical Church in Minnesota who turned on online giving for the first time. They were able to raise $500,000 for a capital campaign. And we're seeing adding an online giving option increases overall church donations by 32%, but we're just scratching the surface of the digital trend change. So, Carey, as you think about some of the trends you're seeing with churches, one, how can churches kind of make the shift to cultivating generous disciples?
Well, I saw this when I was a lead pastor about 12 or 13 years ago. I just realized, okay, the whole world is going online. And that includes giving, right? Like I went out to dinner with my wife. How did I pay? I tapped my phone.
Right.
I didn't even pull my credit card out. And I certainly didn't sit there with a wad of cash or say, do you guys take checks? Like we didn't do that. And I saw that because I'm kind of future oriented 13 years ago at our church. And then it was way more difficult to do giving online. And particularly with the Canadian banking system, which is very different than the US banking system, it was really complicated. But we did the hard work and we got online and we went from, this is 13 years ago, from 30% of giving being online to 70% in 12 months.
Yeah.
I'm sure the stat now is like 95% is online giving. And I was doing some research for another project, and 86% of all transactions in the United States this year that involve money are digital transactions. So that means 14% are left to cash and check. Now, you look at church adoption is way behind the curve, even in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's my theory. People who want to give, if they're not presented with an easy way to give, will not give, because it's like, okay, time for the offering. Honey, do you have any money? I don't have any money. Do you have any money? I don't have any money. Okay, we'll give when we get home. Forgot. Didn't happen. It's just like, sometimes I'll see someone on the street that needs some help, a homeless person. I hate it. I don't carry cash anymore. And, I can't tap to give there. And so I try to keep some in my glove box if I'm going to give some to people who are in need, but it's not always there. Then I got to go back to my car. We're making it incredibly inconvenient for people to give. And, the best way I know, and this is the way I teach it, the best antidote to greed in my life is generosity. So I need it came straight out of my bank when I got paid last week, straight to the church. And because otherwise life gets busy and it's like, oh, that's a shiny thing. I need that. And then there's nothing left over. So that was a decision we made early on in our marriage, my wife and I, that we were going to tithe, and digital discipleship makes that way easier. And people who want to give a check, if you want to bring a check to the office, we're not going to stop you.
Right.
And think about this too. Like if you want to give a significant, meaningful amount. So let's say somebody makes $50,000 a year. They're going to tithe $5,000. That's $100 a week. Are you going to be floating around $100 bills all the time? Probably not. Or, if you make $200,000 a year and you're going to give $20,000 a year, are you going to be floating around stacks of cash on Sunday? No, you're not. You're going to do that digitally. So I'm all for that.
Yeah. And it is an incredible opportunity today. Just like, if you were to have your car parked and the valet is looking for a tip and you don't have cash, they'll accept Venmo. If the valet,
there you go. Well, I gotta get out more.
Yeah.
Nobody here is that advanced.
Yeah. So for the church, we just have to think about, you even mentioned tap, for us, we provide the ability to tap and give if you have it on the back of a seat, or throw a QR code up, or create those opportunities that are very easy. It could be through text. It could be online. It could be in your app. We even have it as opportunities that might pop up during a live stream. Maybe somebody's physically not present, but pastor does say, hey, if you want to support the mission of this church, which keep it mission focused,
right?
Keep it about what you're doing, not just saying, hey, give. Keep it about what you're trying to accomplish and what God's calling the church to, right? And really out of a need, not out of any excess. But it's very easy to find ways to connect digital giving. Carey, any thoughts on just like churches that are sitting in the spot saying, we hope people give, to we have disciples who are giving?
Yeah. So I think one of the best things you can do to try to elevate discipleship, do a sermon series on money when you're not raising money. Because all pastors are afraid of it. And then it's like, oh, we got to do a capital campaign, or we're short on the budget. So therefore I will do a money series. I did that for a few years. It's a big mistake. And then I pivoted and I'm like, we're going to talk about money when we don't need money. And I'm going to focus on what I want for you, not what I want from you. And when you don't have that, hey, it's good for you guys. Anna and Chris, you need to give, and let me tell you why you need to give. It's an antidote to greed. And if you don't want to give to our church, please give to a local charity. You are going to be better for it. And God has entrusted you with this. And what are you going to do with that? Like, I think shifting that tone is so important, because otherwise it's so needy and it's me, us, I.
Right.
You know, the roof is leaking and we're not going to be able to meet here anymore. But it's more about what you want to do for people, what you want to see for them, than what you want from them. And that this is a responsibility God entrusted us with. Like, as broke as we feel, we are the most wealthy people on planet Earth for the most part. And God to use that money faithfully. So I think you've got to change that. And discipleship is really about educating people on this. And if you can educate them on it, and you can do that through your app, through Bible study. But I would say the first shift is talk about money when you're not trying to raise money, and it'll go a long way.
Such a good point. Yeah, I know for myself too, I don't like even really having cash on myself anymore. So when something is easy, like you mentioned with the tap, Carey, it is my first choice always to just tap my phone and use that. So I think that there's really something to it. And if churches can really get on that trend, I think they're going to see the generosity increase overall in their congregation.
You want to give $8 or all to such and such, and you just gotta, if they're making it easy to give, you gotta make it easy for people.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to hop in. This conversation has been amazing. I cannot believe that we're already about 40 minutes in. If you want to dive deeper, we have worked together with Carey and his team to produce this free resource. It is an ebook. All of this content wrapped up to an easy to read digital resource. Speaking of digital resources, that we will be sending out right after this. You can download it here on your screen. And we have one more point that I think is probably going to be one of the most fun to talk about, from competing with culture to leading culture. I have many thoughts on this. None of them are nearly as well formed as Carey's thoughts on this. But we know that people are looking for an alternative to culture, not just an echo. They're coming to church to look for something different. And Carey, I know you have said that you cannot lead the culture if you're only borrowing space from it. I would love for you to provide more context into what that means and what your heart was behind that.
I think a lot of us are probably aware of what's happening with Gen Z now. And the great thing is, what were little stories and anecdotes 2 years ago are now statistical trends. So you do see a revival of sorts happening among Gen Z. And when I sit down with Gen Z leaders who are leading this movement, what they tell me is they think the reason, sovereign move of God, that's amazing, but they're looking for reasons, and they say Gen Z has been driven to despair by the culture, and now they're desperate. And they realize, like, sexuality as portrayed by the culture is bankrupt. They realize that the culture wars and the arguing and the polarization is just distressing. Jonathan Haidt has chronicled the anxious generation, and they're part of that anxious generation. And they're like, there's got to be a better way. And that's what they're discovering. And I think what they're looking for is, they're not looking for you to just parrot what's happening in the culture. They're saying, is Jesus offering another way? And I believe he is. I believe he's creating not the kingdom of the left or the right. He's creating an alternate kingdom, an alt kingdom that is ushering another world. N.T. Wright writes about this, right? That the kingdom of God needs to come on earth as it is in heaven. And so I think that's what we're seeing, and when you see all those student movements, if you follow the Unite movement or some of the other things that are happening, it's marked by deep confession. We had a moment like that at a live event I hosted in Dallas a few weeks ago, where pastors were confessing their sins out loud in front of other church leaders. I've never seen that happen before. I kind of planned some prayer at the end and just thought people would do polite pastoral prayer. How can I pray for you? How can I pray for your family? And they were like, led by Luke Lefevre, confessing their sins out loud to each other, just like it says in the Bible. Like, it's crazy. And that's what we're seeing in the next generation. And I think they're done with the culture and they're saying, clearly there's another way, isn't there? And we need to be ready to lead them there and say there is another way. And his name is Jesus. And he doesn't buy the dialogue that's happening in the culture right now, because some people love it. Like some people love that polarization. Most of us are sick of it and nauseated by it. And we're looking for an alternative to it. And that's what the gospel offers.
That's right. And it requires a boldness for the church as well. That's bold to be willing to confess. And it requires the church being less worried about what people think of you and being more worried about what God's calling you to actually be that catalyst for change in our world. There's the puppy.
There's an amen.
I think he's feeling it. It is one of those things too that I feel like this is a challenge to church leaders. They are given the challenge to shape the culture, not just be in the culture. And I think that is one of the most exciting. It gets me all fired up too, to think about this opportunity that we have in 2025 to invest in, shape, and no longer compete, because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to lead. And so I'm excited about that.
Well, it takes a lot of courage too. I mean, my challenge, I'm non-denominational, but a lot of us basically have taken confession out of Sunday services. You know, when I was part of a mainline tradition, we had something called the prayer of approach and confession every Sunday. And I missed that. And we just kind of lost it. And, you know, we don't confess our sins, because nothing's my fault, by the way. It's everybody else's fault. I don't know whether you knew that or not, but nothing's wrong with me. That's the cultural narrative. And the biblical narrative is we're all sinners saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. And I think the next generation knows that. And they realize that life without God is bankrupt, and life with God through Jesus actually brings life. And so I'm excited to see this moment. I'm really excited to see what's happening. And I think the key is for us not to just keep echoing the left or the right or wherever we happen to be, but to find the gospel narrative in the midst of it and to share that with a generation that's hungry for hope.
That's right. That's so right. And then some of the, competing, conversations, the noise that they have, the distractions. What are some of the changing methods for us? I know, we're also talking about technology. What are some of the methods that we can kind of lead in culture with?
Well, I look back over, it was 30 years ago, I started at ministry at the three little churches near my house. And, we had to change everything. It was like every church can smell like a year. You sort of walk into a church, and I walked into those churches and it smelled like 1947. It's kind of like, oh, wow, this is stale. Right. And your church probably smells like a year. It might smell like 2014 or 2021 or 2006. You can often tell by the copyright dates on the songs you're singing. And, if they go back 15, 20 years, that kind of marks your church. So what we did, we didn't change the mission. We changed the methods. We introduced a new band. We changed the style. We changed the approach. We changed the programming the church was doing, and we saw a lot of people come to faith. And, that kind of culminated a decade ago in the attractional church. And what's interesting, that was like driving motorcycles onto the stage and stuff like that. And that's not really resonating as much anymore. I think it had a moment, but now what we're seeing is people are focused on confession, and they're focused on authenticity, and they're focused on even passion more than polish. And so I think we all have to take a look at our model of church, because even the people who say, I don't have a model of church, you have a model of church, right? You do. It's just the way you do church. And you got to make sure, is this responsive and being shaped by what God wants to do in this moment? And we get tied to our traditions. I'll give you a bit of a parable. When I was in seminary, I was part of that mainline tradition. And there, it was like, do we wear robes or not wear robes? There are certain traditions where pastors and priests wear robes. And the history of the robe is, if you were Presbyterian or Reformed in the 16th century, basically they got rid of the priestly garments. And I have a lot of respect for Roman Catholic friends. I have a lot of them. But, they got rid of the priestly garments and they went into the plain black academic robes. And that's what John Calvin taught in. And so his followers are like, well, Calvin wore a robe, so we should wear a robe. And then it became antiquated because professors weren't wearing those anymore. And then it became sacred. And so even in the 21st century, there are people who are like, well, you have to wear a robe and a collar. Well, No, actually, that was something that was just supposed to be contemporary dress 400 years ago that got turned into something sacred. It was a method. It isn't the mission. And so I think every generation, it was Thomas Jefferson who said every generation needs a new revolution. It's really interesting. You got to look at to make sure that the form of church is actually the right form for the age so that the gospel can move forward.
Absolutely. I love that. My church here in Atlanta, we do have a core value that is ever-changing methodology with a never-changing mission. And I believe wholeheartedly, Carey, what you're saying is exactly how we have to continue moving through the world. And that's even true when you're trying to reach people in other countries all over the world. You have to be willing to reconsider what your methods are and to be open-minded to what that might look like while the mission and the truth of Jesus remains the exact same.
That's a great expression of it. Even what I do to reach leaders, it started when I was blogging as a hobby, when this was a hobby, when I was a lead pastor. Well, the bad news is blogs have pretty much gone away. People don't read, people watch. And there's part of me that really, so as a founder or somebody who's been there for a long time, if I was like, well, I got a new blog post today, 8 people are going to clap. But if it's a new video, a new podcast, a new, social media post or whatever, that's how we're getting the news out. And that's, we do use social media despite the fact that 10% of your followers are going to see a post. It's just not, and we have a huge email list now. So email is the new blogging. That's what we realized a few years ago. So it's not that we never put out a blog post, but the form had to change. The method had to change so the mission could stay on. And our mission is to help church leaders at our company like Subsplash, identify and break the next growth barrier they're facing. So we got to go to where the leaders are. We can't say, hey, you have to learn how to read a blog in order to be equipped. They're just not going to do it.
Absolutely. Well, my goodness, I feel like I could sit here all day, Carey, chatting with you and listening to you. And it has been such a rich conversation with so many really great takeaways. Just as a quick recap, we talked about in the beginning, two-way engagement. Everyone is known. Church goes beyond Sunday, cultivating generous disciples. And then finally, we wrapped up with leading culture. All of these things we believe are 5 strategic shifts to boost the momentum in your church in 2026. And hey, we're here to support you in that mission. That is why companies like Subsplash exist. It is why Carey and his team do what they do. We are here to partner with you. We are for you, and we are cheering you on day after day.
Yeah, and we'll be sharing a link for all attendees here. And wherever you find yourself as a church today, if you are seeing an influx of new people, of young people, and you want to figure out how do we better disciple, we would love to listen and learn and consult with you. And if you're saying we haven't yet really found those connections, or people aren't yet coming through our doors, we'd also love to talk to you just about what could be possible as we think about digital discipleship and how it partners with you in your mission. So please reach out to our team, and we will be providing a link.
Absolutely. And really quick, we have so much going on right now at Subsplash. October 22nd, we would love for you to join us. We have another digital event, the Future of Digital Discipleship. We will be partnering with Barna, a team that Carey loves, we love. They are such great partners in the space. And then in November, we're working on the actual date. We're going to have a product event, which, hey, what does that mean? We're going to tell you about all the new things that we're launching as we round out this year. And we would love for you to come and listen and be excited alongside of us for what we have to offer the church in 2026 and beyond. I do not want, again, don't download your copy. Don't forget about your ebook, but I do not want to hoard Carey's time all for us, Chris. So I would love if you have a couple of minutes to stay on. Let's do a Q&A. Let's drop some questions in the Q&A, and we can spend just a couple of minutes here getting the opportunity to hear from Carey. So it looks like this first one, how do you deal with announcement fatigue? We have lots of ministries and lots of events and opportunities. How do we get people to the right place without everyone being bored or overwhelmed? Every ministry feels like their thing needs to be said from the stage. My goodness, I get it.
All right, Sam, great question. This is also, my answer is how to never be invited back to another webinar. So I'm going to tell you what I really think, Sam. I think you need to do one announcement. That's it. And it needs to apply to the entire church. And then if you get an app or you have email streams or that kind of thing, like who needs to know that the band is rehearsing on Wednesday night? The band does. So create a band email list or text chain and send that out to the band. And, the women's quilting club is meeting Tuesday at 11. There's probably 8 people who go to that. So tell them, but you don't have to announce it on a Sunday. And then if you get that discipleship stream going that we talked about earlier, where all newcomers, so the announcement probably should be, hey, if you're new here, drop by the New Here kiosk, or our team would love to meet you, or scan this QR code, or tap the chair in front of you, and we would love to get you connected. We did a gift for you. We've got a mug for you, and we'd love to learn a little bit more about you and your family. And then basically you're setting expectations. So I'm very anti-announcement. I hate to say it, but basically, if you're agreeing, I think, Chris and Anna.
Yeah.
Because if you say 11 things, you say nothing. Right? Nobody's listening.
Keep the main thing the main thing. I fully agree.
Yes, I totally agree. I think it's too much. Okay, really quick, this next one. What quick wins would you suggest a 200-member church to try this holiday season? I love this because this guest 729, we are entering into a huge season of new church, new people walking into your church building. So how do you create some really quick wins in a 200-ish person church to try as we're entering the Christmas season?
So this is my favorite thing. It's going to sound like it's completely contradictory what I just said about websites, but here's what I think you should do, because Christmas is a bit different. People are going to be searching for things to do at Christmas as a family. So what you should do is go on to GoDaddy or a site like that and buy a christmasinyourcity.com. So you're in Seattle. I'm sure this one's gone, but christmasinseattle.com, christmasinatlanta.com, christmasintoronto.com, that kind of thing. And then you make your community, your Christmas Eve service, whatever, an outreach event to the community. You create flyers, you tell people to invite their friends and expect double your normal attendance. And then you design the service with new people in mind. That's what I would do.
Cool.
Love it. I love that. Do we have any more questions today? Okay. What's the one opportunity for growth that most churches are overlooking? Ooh, I'm excited to hear your response to this one, Carey.
Well, I've been talking with Warren Bird and Tom Rainer in the last couple of weeks, and both of them would say the number one thing churches are overlooking: personal invitation. As much as we've talked strategy, and what to do from the front, when you encourage your members, and Tom would say, not only invite a friend, but go for lunch with them after, or coffee, the response rate triples. So it's something like 81% of people would go to a church if somebody invited them. You were talking about your Amazon driver, praying with your Amazon driver.
Yep.
Follow JP Bacluta. He's praying with everybody and like baptizing half of them. It's crazy.
Yes.
People are more open than you realize, and you've got to encourage not just you as a pastor, but your church. You've got to create an evangelism culture. And if you do that and people start routinely, and that was part of the reason we had all of our neighbors in our backyard on Saturday, is, and we had more people than RSVP'd show up. I'm like to my neighbor, hey, do you have an extra card table? Do you have extra chairs? Does somebody have an extra serving table? We need to bring out more stuff because so many people were coming. They will come. And some of those people I think are going to end up at our church. So you got to have that invite culture. And most people would rather spend $100 on Google Ads than train their people to invite people. And when our church was smaller and going through, this is like 20 years ago, I actually remember one day bringing someone up on stage and role playing how to invite a friend to church. It's like, here's how not to do it. Here's how to do it. And if you would do that and just say, so invite your friends and take them for lunch after, you're going to see a change in your culture.
I love that. That's so good. I think there's so much to it. I was actually just talking to a friend about inviting somebody to something. And sometimes I find myself being like, I'd love for you to come, but it's totally fine if you can't. And that almost gives people an out. It's what you're saying. It's like, I would love for you to come and maybe after we could grab coffee. And you're really investing. And as we mentioned earlier, people just want to be known. So I think that is spot on.
All they can say is no.
Right. Yes. Well, this has been so much fun. I am so glad that we got to do this again, Carey and Chris. I hope we can do it again next year.
Thanks, Carey.
Yeah, second year in a row. Maybe we can make this kind of our annual catch-up session. And I would love
I would
to.
love that. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
See you guys again soon. So to everyone who's attended with us today, it's been so great to have you. The link to this webinar will be sent out shortly, and you will have the opportunity to watch it again or share it with other pastors in your community. And if there's anything we can do to be supporting you, Subsplash is easy to get a hold of. So website, app, socials, we're everywhere. Find us, and we will be excited to connect. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.